Morning, morning. Good morning. Give me 1 second. I have to pull something up here. Good morning. Good morning. Let me pull this stuff up. Welcome to Mornings with Marvel, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am broadcasting live on my Instagram professional page, A.LawfulTruth underscore I'm sorry. Yeah, A Lawful Truth underscore LLC. Uh, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so I'm always going back and forth because, Instagram and Facebook, they're always doing their own thing. And so so I'm on the professional page over there. I am on YouTube live. Lawful Truth Enterprises. And yes, David. Good morning, my darling. Oh, do we have a show for you today? I cannot wait to see what your response is to all of this. Now, listen, most of the times when I'm on the air, I am literally just trying to, cover what's going on. I'm told on. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find my lineup from my producer. I got it. I got it. I'm literally just trying to, give you things to make sure that you're hanging in here with all the craziness that's going on in the country. And every once in a while, it takes me a while sometimes to pull forth things that I have learned about. Oh, hold on. What is happening here? Okay. Okay. All right. So, when I'm asked to cover something, I really make sure that I am following protocol before I say anything. Good morning, Danette Paris. Good morning. Good morning. I see you all, Shaquilla. I have a show for you all today. Shaquilla, Marguerite, Bobby. Good morning, Bobby. To Alexandra, Beatrice. Oh, you all are here today. All right, now. Good morning. I make sure that I dot all my I's and cross all my T's. Sometimes my sources do not wish to be identified, and that's fine, right? But I have to make sure that I get all the information. So if someone calls me and says, "Well, I need to know where did you get that from?" I can cite, privately what's going on. And so yesterday I covered Martin Luther King High School in depth, and I hear that there's some rumblings now going on over there. So I'm grateful that you all have stepped up to listen and to understand what's happening and to pull attention so that we could pull some public attention to what was going on in that building so that they can get some help and support because there's a lot happening there. Let me see. There's other people on here saying good morning. So here's what's going. Alexander said, I was hoping David Alexander Jenkins was going to be a part of today's show. I'm ready to take notes. David is single, but he is not unattached. He has someone in his life. Same thing with Ira. I had to call Ira and I was like, yo, bro, you can't get on this conversation because you're not single. You're not married, but you're in a relationship. He said, Marvel, thank you for saving my bacon because I just know I wasn't thinking this through. So today we're going to have three sisters on who are single and want to discuss, what it is like living the single life. And Cherie Syfax, who she is on the continent of Africa right now. So as long as her connection is working properly, she'll be able to join us. To have this much needed conversation. I was hoping a couple of brothers would say, "Come on, Andrea, I'm ready to talk to you," but they're not quite there yet, right? So I'm hoping as they listen, they'll come on and start to talk about what are the challenges because sisters are more are apt to want to speak to what is going on. Brothers don't really want to come on and talk about their being single, but they'll call me or they'll inbox me and say, Andrea, I was watching your show, or I'll see them on the street and they'll say, Marva, I saw your show. David, you are not single. I'm not putting anybody in here. That is that is not single, or otherwise attached. I should say single and unattached. I don't want to talk to anybody who's otherwise attached because I do not want to cause problems in your relationships, right? Because they might think, oh my God, you're on there talking on our show about single life and you're not single. Ha ha. morning, Dennis. How are you? So so we're going to do that this morning. And wait, what? David, David Alexander Jenkins. I didn't know that. All right, David, come on, join me, because I'm going to let everybody in that the women are supposed to join me at 6:45. Come on in. I'm warning you all now, since I don't have to go to the gym, and I'm going to have three or four people plus Cherie that the show may go a little bit beyond 7:30, and as long as that's okay with all of you, because this is about relationships, this is about love. This is about finding it or not finding it. When I put up the post yesterday morning, um, okay, okay, that's fine. Okay, cool. And Cherie is going to come and talk about marriage, from the married lens. So that's cool. Let me see. What else? There's something else I wanted to talk to you all about. So the show may go a little bit longer today, and as long as you guys are okay with that, that's okay. But we need to have this discussion. I find that when I talk about my husband, you all are so intrigued, and I would consider that our relationship is normal or average, only to find out that it isn't. It was Joanne Bell that stopped me, and she says, "Let me tell you something. You have one of maybe 10 authentic relationships in this city, because what we see is what we get. There's no airs, and people are usually miserable." David just joined me in the show this morning. You are crazy as hell. Um, you're usually miserable, at home, and what you see from me is what you get. If my husband is working my last corpuscle, he would get on my nerves so badly. One of my sisters sent him a sweatshirt that says, "Oh, look, my wife's last nerve. Let me go touch it." He wears it all the time. He wears it all the time, and especially when we're going somewhere. But we have to be able to have conversations about relationships in such a way that we get that it's not perfection. We have to stop coming on here and fronting and acting like all is well. And I get it. You don't want everybody. You're not going to get into details about all that is happening in your relationships. I get it. I get all of that. But we pretend as if all is well all the time, and then we look up and we hear, "Oh, we're getting a divorce." I've heard some stories. Oh my God, one of the sisters joining me this morning, I almost fell out my chair. I was like, "Wait, what?" People are going through it, and and you have to find spaces. I didn't hear her story until she was actually in the throes of a divorce, like the divorce was happening. So I am looking forward to these conversations today, right? So I need you to buckle up. I need you to take notes. I need you to be ready. David is the first one joining me. I can't wait with his crazy.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
So
Listen, I said,
crazy. So you're going to be the only man
let me
on
throw on
this
some,
today. So
because
before
we hear it
good,
all.
good morning, darling. So,
Good
oh, my
morning.
husband told me to tell you to get better headphones because he likes listening to you talk, but sometimes he can't hear
Yes,
you.
it's just I need the whole like ear thing or the
Yes, you do.
microphone
Need
thing or
something
the
because I'm talking to you
yeah
every week. So
yeah.
let's
We're
do
gonna do
that, shall
that.
we? Okay. All
Yes,
right.
yes.
So you're going to be the only man on this conversation today, this is just wonderful. Talk to me about being single. What is it
Yeah,
that people need to know? And you happen to also be gay, right? Do you
right.
identify as gay?
I do.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. So talk to me about being single and what is it like trying to find a partner in these single streets?
Gay dear, who dare me? No. um, single is these streets out here are rough, and part of it is because people are non-committal about life, right? They have chosen to look for what is easy and what is what do we say? We have a consumer-friendly existence. So if it's not a McDonald's type of life, I don't want it, right? I want a Happy Meal. I want to order it off the menu. I want it to be ready, packaged for me in 2 minutes. And when I finish eating it, I want to dispose of it. And if it's terrible for my body, if it tears me up on the inside, if it crushes my spirits into the hospital, that's okay. That type of marketing in life in general has seeped into our understanding of relationships. Um, we walk into relationships in a larger uh, idea, kind of saying, if it works for me, then I'll stay. We don't expect to do any work. We don't expect to, and I think that's
But
a
how the
problem.
hell does that work? With everything in life, we have to
It
expect
doesn't.
to do work. That
It
includes
doesn't.
relationships. Oneida, I
Yeah.
see you. Good morning, my darling.
Good morning. How are
All
you?
right. You ready for this conversation, Jane?
I am ready.
Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna let David
It
finish from there.
it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The truth is, relationships are not about your joy and happiness at all times. They were actually created in order to mutually support one another. And that's tougher when you don't like someone for a moment. When you have to lean on a person that you trust who's telling you something you don't want to hear, right? So people walk into situations for the quick fix, and what they need to walk into, and kind of what we all look for, is someone for the long haul, right? If you look at the bonds of marriage, if for better, for worse, for rich, for poor, for sickness and health, love, honor, cherish, and for many obey. These none of that says when I feel happy and
Right.
when I'm
Or when I
sad.
get everything that I want to, or you
Yeah.
have to make sure that I am happy at all times. Who the hell created that? Who says that we have to see to other people's happiness? People have to see to our happiness and make sure that we're okay. Doesn't that come from within?
If one could do that, then there would be no need for a contract. The contract is to keep you when you're not so happy. The contract is for when you're so poor. The contract is for when stuff is going awry. The contract is for when you can't pray. The contract is for when you lost your job. The contract is for when your home is on the fritz. That's what the contract is for. If you don't like the contract, then you need to sit your behind down and be single one with yourself. You're
Hmm.
not looking for a replication of yourself, right? You're looking for someone to help add to the things that you can't do so well. And you need to then be that person for someone else. So I think that's really the crux of why we have this issue.
Child, David, they on here going, David, buckle up, people. So funny. Let me introduce Oneida, who is a mother. She's a human resource. Let me do it properly, Oneida, because I'm over here trying to act like I know what I'm talking about, and I want to make sure that I am. There are going to be two other women, and possibly Cherie joining us. So this is a love is segment like no other, right? Oneida Stevenson is a human resources director and has a teenage daughter. Thank you for the light, my darling, because we couldn't
Thank
see you.
you.
Good morning, sweetie pie. How
Good
long have you been
morning.
single?
Oh, I've been single for a while, if I can be honest.
Okay, you can be honest.
Probably probably the last 8 years.
Okay. Were you
Yeah.
married before?
No, I've never been married.
You've never been married. This conversation is about to be
I've never been
hot.
married.
Janine McFadden. Good morning, my
Good
darling.
morning. Good
Ooh,
morning.
turn up your sound a little bit. You sound low to me.
Okay.
And Judith. Good morning, sweetie pie. Judith,
Hi.
hi.
Hi,
Oh,
can y'all hear
y'all.
me?
Yes, I can hear you. Turn up your sound a little bit. The only ones that's missing now is Cherie Syfax, who was in the
Okay.
continent of Africa. She may not have good service, but can she, if she can get on, we'll have this dialogue. So listen, Cherie and I have been talking now for 2 years about love. And yesterday morning, after having a conversation with a friend, I was like, I need to talk to single people. I need to talk to people who are like, F,
It's okay. It's okay.
It's your
bump
show.
this, bump this, because
Mhm.
these people out here are just all over the place. So, Anita, you've been single for about 8 years. You've never been married. What are you experiencing?
I am experiencing people who are not comfortable with themselves, who are not in a right headspace. Just, I mean, I don't, I don't really know how to articulate it the best, but I will say this. My father always told me, be mindful who you connect yourself with, because once you connect with them, the energy flows between the two of you. And so if
Gotcha.
there's no other energy that is giving, then they're taking. And so I'm encountering takers. Maybe sometimes not directly, but from afar. I am a person who is not quick to put a label on something, to want to be in a quote unquote category. So I will just have you as a friend until I'm sure this is what I want to be connected to.
Right.
And so for me, I just find that people want to put a title on things so that they can kind of lock you in, and then you're along for the ride.
Yeah. What have you said to yourself as you see those things happening? Did you say, and I'm asking this because I had to do it for myself, did you say, why am I attracting these broken winged birds?
Ooh, yes, absolutely. Learned that a long time ago from Iyanla Van Zant,
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that I'm putting out there that people are seeing, and they want it. They want it. Um, but I kind of take it into what I do for a living.
Mhm.
When you look at a human resource person, we are dealing with people all the time. So I realize there's something, a quality in me that people are attracted to, and they want to be a part of it. I had to learn how to say no. I don't want to be connected to you. It's like a leave it at the door. So that's how I go about life. I
Mhm.
see people for who they are. I respect you for who you are, but I don't have to be a part of that.
Okay. Okay. Janine, darling, good morning and
Good
welcome to
morning.
Mornings
Can
with
you hear
Moguls.
me better now?
I can hear you better now.
Okay.
Listen, you are the one that I have never met before. Have we met?
We've never met in person. I've seen you on social media, but we've never had an acquaintance in person. No.
Okay. So you're the only one that's not familiar with me. Oh, get ready, honey. We're about to cut up today.
I'm familiar with you. I'm familiar with you, but just not on an
A person.
a personal level.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
familiar with you from the social media world and other entertainment world.
yeah.
Mhm.
So talk to me. Talk to me about your single life. What is your story?
Sure. So I was married 15 years to my high school sweetheart. Um, had two children. They are now ages 14 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Separated around the time of the pandemic when mask.
2020.
Yeah.
Did you
Hmm.
have any inkling that something was wrong? Because a lot of people got divorced during the pandemic. Did you get divorced during the pandemic, Judith?
I got no, I got divorced in 2023, 12/21, 12/22, 2023. But I
Okay.
know, but shortly after the pandemic, like in 2020, two, around 2021, 2022, that's when I realized, like, okay, this is really getting ready to come to an end.
Okay, hold on. Let me finish
Yeah.
talking to Janine because I know you have a whole story. All right, Janine. So in 20, did you have any inkling that this was a thing, that something was wrong in your marriage at that point?
I did. Yeah, it just exploded during the pandemic because we were isolated.
Yep. And
Yeah,
so
so
you've been divorced for how long now?
on paper, two
Hmm.
years.
2 years. And
Hmm.
so you've been out there in the dating scene, married for 15. What was that like to be married for 15 years? And now thrown out into the pool, I call it the cesspool of dating life. What has that been like for you?
Ooh, oh my goodness. A learning experience. I choose to look at it from a positive perspective. I'm rediscovering myself. I'm reclaiming my power, getting to know who I am in relation to others. Because if you think about it, I was with a person from high school. Who was
Hmm.
I? I had no
Hmm.
idea who I was.
Hmm.
And so I had to, I myself am a therapist. I had to go through therapy, and everything before I could even venture back out into the world.
Hmm.
I had to be able to trust people. I had no
Yeah.
trust.
And so have you started dating?
Hmm. I've started dating, but I took 2 years off.
Right. Hmm. And what are you finding now as you're out here dating in these Wakandan streets, as I'd like to say?
Wakanda Street. A mix of everything. I'm finding that there is this brown paper bag full of people. If I so choose to place them in here, and I'm shaking it up, and I'm pulling one person out, and I'm saying, okay, this person's interesting, but let me put them back in and select another one. No, 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 I'm gonna put this person out of the bag here. This one is not a match.
Yes. Yeah. And and so you're still in your it sounds like you just started dating.
I would say within the past 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
once my divorce was finalized on
Mhm.
paper, that's when I personally felt comfortable dating.
Mhm. Mhm. Good morning, Sharice Fairfax, honey, from the continent. I don't even know what country are you in?
Dakar, Senegal.
Yes,
Oh, you're
Molo.
in Senegal. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, happy anniversary, honey.
Mhm.
Thank you. I am no longer a newlywed. 4 years.
Very
Four
nice.
years. You 4 years to no longer. Honey, I'm 10 years in and still looking at him going,
Side eye. Side eye. Yes.
Side eye. So today, sweetie pie, we're talking to people who are single and what the
I
dating
know,
life
I
has
love your
been.
blue. It looks so beautiful.
Don't they look amazing? And so we're going to, the
Absolutely.
conversation may go past 7:30. I'm just warning you. So if you have to get off at 7:30, that's fine. But I need to give these folks an opportunity to talk to me in an authentic way. Judith, I'm coming to you next because I know your story. Do you think you want to share it here?
Sure.
Okay. You got
Yeah.
3 minutes to tell the whole story though. Like, okay.
Okay. So in within that time frame, hi everyone, I'm Judith. I'm Demornay, and I was married for 22 years, so half of my adult life. And from that, I have a daughter, who is now 22,
You sound
23
low, Judith.
actually.
Can you turn yourself up a
Oh,
little bit?
let's see. I'm gonna see. I'm wondering if I use the headphones, would that be better?
Better try
Let's
and see
see.
what happens. Because Judith was married for a whole 22 years. 22 years. Had gone through so much in those 22 years. And we were like, all right, they're going to be fine. And then I woke up one morning and Judith was getting a divorce, but I'm going to let her tell her story. So sometimes I wonder if we see the signs,
Mhm.
right? But the idea of I just want to, I've come this far by faith. I'm just going to sit this far by faith until it comes to a head. Sometimes I wonder about that, because Janine, did you see signs?
I did. Yeah.
You did.
Hmm.
You did. What made you? Did you ignore them, or did you think it would get better?
I didn't ignore them. I summoned my then husband at that time to get assistance, and the reluctance was there. So you can't, possibly make someone.
Go ahead, David. I see David trying
I,
to.
I was just doing some math, and it dawned on me that your second child comes at the time of your divorce.
You're
And so I
absolutely right.
wondered, and there's so many people who have the second child as the savior to the marriage. And I wonder if that was part of the story, or if that was a coincidence. If being pregnant and experiencing pandemic and living together and feeling like that didn't fix anything. And then what was it like to sort of walk through this 5 years in a tumultuous time in your own world?
Sure, sure. So actually, myself, I always had challenges with fertility. And so that my journey with having a child, um, 8 years apart, was because there were losses in between. It wasn't necessarily to save the relationship or the marriage at that point. However, there were other situations and other remedies that were applied to the marriage in order to try to help it to continue. Not my baby girl.
I sense you have quite a story, and you're being thoughtful. I appreciate you being thoughtful around that, um, especially since people are watching, right? But Judith, I believe,
Mhm.
has begun sharing her story. So you were married for 22 years. Can you tell
Mhm.
us a little bit of what was going on in the marriage? Did you have any inkling that things were not right? Did you ignore certain things?
So can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. So within the 22 years, um, I would say I break them up in quarters, like football. So in the first quarter, everything was good. Second quarter, we had a baby, and pretty much that really changed some things because what I recognize, not not immediately, but when you have a child, you're sharing that space, and sometimes as a new mom, you don't know how to do that.
Hmm.
And so I noticed there were some, changes in quarter two. In the third quarter, I felt like, wow, there's some distance there, because now the daughter is in middle school and slash high school preparation. And so a lot of attention is still centered around the child. But at the
Hmm.
same time, as a mother, I want to do mother things. I want to do things as husband and wife. I want to do things as with my friends and his friends, and then we do things as a family. And that actually happened a lot in the third quarter. But then now, when we get to the fourth quarter, the daughter is now going into college. And that's when I felt like, wow, this will be our time to kind of rekindle some of the things that may have been lost. But in between that time, within the third quarter, I dealt with infidelity, and I had to, I had to learn um, about myself in terms of, wow, like what. A lot of times women say, I'm going to leave when this happens, but you really don't know what you're going to do until it happens. And
Mhm.
so we agreed to go to counseling, and counseling, I think, helped. And then as a result of that, in between that time too, I also dealt with, it was like a big scandal, and I dealt with incarceration. So then what do when your spouse goes and he's incarcerated? That's another topic by itself, but I dealt
Yeah.
with that. I dealt
Yeah.
with all of those stages. So in stage 4, now I'm like, okay, let's like try to go back to the first quarter, but more
Mhm.
maturely. And I dealt with infidelity again. So at that point, I said to myself, you know what? You owe yourself more. I love you, but I love me more. And so with that being, and I have a daughter. So I had to make sure that, I had to be the model for a young lady so that she can be prepared to date men. Now, does
Mhm.
that take anything away from my spouse? Absolutely not, because that's where you are. That's not where I am.
Mhm.
I love you. I love you respectfully, but I can't continue on with a marriage where I'm being disrespected. Absolutely
Mhm.
not. And so that's when I made an informed decision, like, you know what, this has to come to an end. So
Mhm.
that's my
I have
three
I have a
minutes
question
still.
for you because I've had this conversation with lots of women who were married and then divorced. Did you lose friends after the I'm asking you and Janine. Did you lose friends after
Mhm.
you got divorced because they didn't want you to be a
Mhm.
part of their marriage clique?
Yes, I definitely lost friends, even though they may have said to me, "Oh, I'm with you, I'm for you." The behavior did not match that, and so I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, like, I still, in fact, I learned in both instances of the changes that were going on in my life, who my friends really were. And your real friends are going to stick with you. They're not going to judge you. And for me, before I was muted, and I had to deal with the shame and the embarrassment and the guilt, which is why I did not immediately share information. And the other piece to that is, I was married for 22 years, and with marriage, that's a very sacred thing. You don't share openly what's
Yeah.
going on in your
Mhm.
life with other people. And then a lot of single people in particular, like, people are so quick to say, oh, well, you should do this, you should do that, but you're not in my shoes.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to do those things, because one, you're not married, so you can't give me solicit advice. And two, this is like a private thing. And here's the part that makes it more deep. The one friend or two that you think is your friend, they go and tell all your business, or they're going behind your back, and oh yeah, I knew he was doing so and so. What the
Can
hell,
you
you
imagine?
didn't know? You telling me now that you knew that he was doing X, Y, and Z, and then and here's the thing, I'm not even asking you to come to me, because that might be a hard thing to do, but you didn't check him. Then you're not a real friend. And then when I finally put it out there, then you want to tell me all of the things, like, and then I'm in my most vulnerable state of mind, and this is what you do to me. I realized then that I had to learn how to cut people off. And I'm going to always be professional, cordial, and respectful, but at the end of the day, you don't deserve my friendship.
Yeah,
You
I
don't
can still.
deserve my friendship,
Yeah.
because if this is how you do me, then this is how you do everything. So I had to cut people off, and guess what, I'm okay with that. I love who I am. I love myself.
I have
And
seen the shift in you,
yeah,
my sister.
yeah.
Before the divorce, you were absolutely right. You were muted. You were in the background, allowing him to be whoever he was, say all the things that he was doing. And there were times when I saw that you didn't agree with him just through your eyes, Caribbean sister, the Caribbean sister, but you never said anything publicly that would harm him. Right.
Mm-mm,
And to your point, because I didn't know until you told me what was going on. So
mm-mm.
the question then becomes, if your spouse or your significant other is cheating, would you want to know?
Yes,
I
Yes,
absolutely.
would.
Mhm.
Anida?
I would
Yes,
definitely
Yes,
want to
Cherie?
know.
Yes,
absolutely.
Janine?
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
always want to know.
Were you treated differently, Janine, when you got divorced?
I would say not by my friends. My friends rallied around me, though even those who are still married rally around me. And there were friends of mine who we just so happened to go through divorce at the same time. And we were really supporting each other. There's
Yeah.
a different type of support
Hmm.
when you are a divorced friend versus a married friend. And I
Mm.
accept that for what it is. You don't know if you've never experienced divorce, you can't have the same level of empathy and relatability. So I don't expect that from my friends who just so happen to be married.
Yeah.
I allow them to meet me where they are, and
Yeah.
I meet them where they are.
Yeah.
But the one significant thrust, I would say, is the division of family.
Mm. I have a
Say
question about that.
more.
The
Yeah.
No,
division
let
of
hold on, David. Let
family.
me and Cherry, then Sherry, I'm coming to you. Talk about the division of family. What was that about?
So when you're married, oftentimes, and in my marriage, our families were enmeshed. We went to family events and family functions together, and and as the divorce progressed, it stops. And I don't think it's an intentional
Hmm.
stop. I don't blame anyone. It is just they don't know how to digest it. So
Mm.
how do we invite family, or how do we invite you to an event, and your spouse or ex-spouse is no longer a part of the equation? There's a
Mm,
thickness and a tension that occurs when you're going through a divorce. Well, for me,
right.
and sometimes people don't know, family members don't know how to digest that.
I find this is such a hold on, David. I find this to be such an interesting conversation because I too went through a divorce, and in the beginning, it was me though that pulled away, and I was like, well, I don't want to be, I don't want to make them feel like they have to choose. Them suckers were like, look, you're gonna be our sister-in-law for the rest of your life. I don't give a diggity that. I love my brother. I love my this. I love my that. But auntie, and today, all these years later, because you share children, right? You want to make sure
Mhm.
that the children remain a consistent part of the love. Today, when there's something going on with any one of the children, because he has children outside of the marriage, we there was infidelity in mine too, and I was like, bump that. I'd rather go live on a roach-infested floor than cheating is non-negotiable for me.
Mhm.
Y'all are laughing. I'm just telling you how I'm
No,
almost
Mhm.
deals
it's
with
the
these
Mhm.
streets,
truth.
Uh-huh.
right?
The truth.
So
Absolutely.
Addiction and infidelity. That they're
But
yes, and
that
that's
family
when I
union,
call it quits.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead,
that
David,
family
and then
union, I noticed a theme in this conversation, and one that Andrea, we've talked about before. But in your divorce, Andrea, the family unit was a conversation.
yes,
And when we talk about privacy, Judith, and what friends know and what they don't know, and Jenny, when we talk about what structures of family are still around or friends are still around, it dawned on me how many of you, and particularly Judith, you were in the third quarter, and Janine, your first child was 10. Was there a conversation with
14.
your 14? Was there a conversation with your children first about divorces coming? Because the family unit that we create in a marriage is a unit of the entire family, as you said, so enmeshed for you with the whole thing, that sometimes when we don't discuss the dissolution of a thing, then the surprise becomes silence. I'm focused on this sort of because we talked a little bit last week. Again, another conversation was being had between Cherie and Andrea about children's involvement in a marriage and dating and when do you date and who do you have to consider. And it is my belief that you have to consider the people that are of the union. And so if you have these adult children, who are of the union, or children who are able to sort of speak and move and have their being. The consideration in dating is certainly there, but certainly the consideration in divorce, are they a part of the conversation as you're going through the divorce to explain and to ask how they feel?
It depends on the age. If
Was
they're
it 10,
really small,
14 and, yeah,
and 10. I don't know if she talked to the 14-year-old. And I know, Judith, you had a child in college when this was going on. So how did you
right.
respond?
So my daughter was a part of the whole thing. Literally, she was a part of the whole thing, and this is what led to the divorce. And
Was
so
she the one that
so
discovered the infidelity, Judith? Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I
So
remember you
so
telling me.
she was a part of the whole thing. And so now we have to be, all of us have to be adults. There's no hiding. See, I don't my whole thing is I don't lie. I don't like to lie. I teach my daughter not to lie, and I and my husband, we all understand, like, you may be lying, but at this point in time we got to all tell the truth, right? And so my daughter was a part of the conversation, and leading to the divorce also. She was a part of the conversation leading to dating. Whether you like it or not, this it is what it is.
Is that
You have to understand that there, you may not want to have the conversation, but this is the real thing that is happening. So my daughter, oh my God, she has been so supportive. Like,
hmm
I'm and God puts people in your life for a reason. So for me, she helped me during that process. It was
yeah.
a Now here's the thing. I am I had to go through the stages of grief in my divorce, because it's similar to death. And people didn't understand that, but that's not for me to help them to understand, because I was in my grieving process. And by that I mean, like, you have to go through those stages. And my daughter went through those stages as well. And so we were there to support each other. My daughter, like, was away in college. Um uh, and so I had a dog, and my dog was my support system. But, like, I kind of shut down, and I didn't want to do anything. But my daughter, she was always checking in on me, so she was definitely a part of the discussion
hmm
leading up to the divorce. And she respects the decision that was made. And
Mm-hmm.
because she understood, and we had, to your point, David, we had a family meeting. So we discussed, like, this is what's going to happen. I understand your anger. I offered therapy. I had to go to therapy. I offered therapy for him. Like, we all said, hey, we're going to we could go to therapy together if you wish, but I'm definitely going to therapy for myself.
hmm
Jayla, you should go to therapy as well.
hmm
Um, so it was a group discussion. It was a hard discussion, but it was something that needed to be said. And
hmm
the thing about it is, like, because, like I said, I was muted for a long period of time. In fact, like, I would say 2 months in, that's when I pretty much shared, to, like, everybody, which I didn't even know people knew what was going on, but they do, but they
Yeah.
whisper. But that's another conversation. But I had to make sure that I came off of mute, and to be okay with that. Like, I'm very
You
happy.
said,
I'm very happy. Um, I stayed because I was a Christian. I am a Christian. I'm a
hmm
Christian woman. Um, that believe in black love and marriage, and I still believe in black love and marriage. It's not like,
you
oh, I
said,
don't have any hope for it.
hmm
you
I
said two things
do.
which were really two things you said that were really intriguing to me that I think the listeners heard often or earlier. One of the reasons for divorce was because of the daughter, right? And you said I had this sort of pattern behaviors for a young lady who was going to date and go into the world and show that thing. But then the other thing you said reminded me of Oprah and Gail's conversation about you can't have friends who are jealous of anything that you have in life. Um,
Baby.
and and the reason that came into my mind is because so often in a divorce or a separation, we talk about who came out of the woodworks and said this or who knew or who did this. And what we have to remember is that the human psychology asks us to find people to pattern ourselves after and call them friends. right? And so the people who are patterning themselves after you, or looking at your life and going, I wish I had that, or looking at the way in which you move and say, oh my God, my marriage isn't so wonderful, or looking at their kids and say, well, yours went to school here and mine is only a toff at the grocery store, and this has happened. Those people suddenly have a little bit of a victory, right? When something goes wrong in your situation, they get excited because they realize that, oh my God, she's not perfect. Because we were standing there in perfect patty, quiet, not telling the neighbors what was going on inside of our house, and they were whispering because they couldn't really say anything. So I don't want anybody on this channel, anybody listening to this, to believe that they take on this enemy of the whisperer, because that whisperer exists in everybody's room. And we have
Yes.
to think of ourselves, who do we stand next to pattern ourselves after? And how do we behave with them as a lesson that we learn from these other people who pattern themselves
Yeah.
after us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on
Yeah.
one second. Hold on. I gotta get Janine. Did you speak to your children at all? At least the older one?
I did. And David, you had reference to the age of 10, and my son was 10
That's right.
when we
Yes.
separated.
Yes.
So
Yes. That
I
is accurate.
realize now what you were referring to.
Hmm.
Um, but I had to in age appropriate ways.
Absolutely.
Initially my son was disappointed. Of course. I mean, who would have, this is not what I intended for our future as a family. But then there was also a wave of peace that was expressed by him because things had
Mm.
really begun to be unhealthy in the household. And so when the physical separation of the marriage occurred, there was peace. Now, my 1 year old, she of course developmentally wouldn't understand, but
Mm-hmm.
would show outward signs and
Mm.
would, ask for her father. And oh,
Mm.
that was just so painful
Hard. Yeah.
because how do
Yeah.
you explain to a 1 year old the lack of
Mm.
presence?
I
Mm-hmm.
applaud
And
you. I applaud you both,
mhm,
because so
Yeah.
many people choose not to speak. And the damage that creates on the family unit, and particularly the children as they grow and express. I loved how you said, Judith, you were patterning behavior that you wanted your daughter to see. And I love Janina, you
Mm-hmm.
said you age appropriately spoke about it and you dealt with it in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many parents out there who don't speak to their children about separation, about divorce, about dating. And then they expect their children to take the ride with them. And
Yeah.
that's a very dangerous journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Hold,
So
hold on,
can
Judith.
I
Hold
just
on. Hold on, Judith. I know
add?
you're jumping a bit, but I gotta get Cherie in here because I see her looking down, nodding her head. What would you like to add to this, Cherie? Yes, just in there. We're going to need a part two. I agree. We're going to need a part two. What would you like to add to this, Cherie?
No, I mean, I love the conversation. I love what Judith talked, but both Judith and Janine, I didn't hear Oneta's story,
Oneida, we're
so
gonna
I
get
can't.
her soon. Hmm.
Oh, okay. I love that both of them have a strong sense of self. And a lot of times in relationship, that's where you have to get back to in order to kind of move forward in a healthy way. So whether it comes through therapy, whether it comes to your own, inner, the things that you have to do inwardly, it definitely is something that helps you navigate this new space and then prepare yourself for kind of life after relationship, and or if you choose to step back into that process, because you have to kind of learn from all the lessons that that relationship taught you to see which ones you bring into the next relationship, or how you even navigate the next relationship. Jenny was talking about, recognizing when she could throw people out of the bag. A lot of times, well, that process, we sometimes take too long to like recognize that people aren't a fit and that don't need to spend any more time with them. I know when I was dating Tracy, hold on, he's awake. We're in a small set, Airbnb. Anyway, we got here and it wasn't what they said it was going to be. But they're
Okay.
like, no, we're going to move you to that suite in 3 days. But our people, our people, I love us. But um, is when I was dating him, I didn't necessarily throw people out of the bag. I just right fit them. Like that person isn't going to be the person that I'm taking into relationship, but they could be a good person for me to know. And so recognizing that you don't have to, like I tell women that I talk to, don't look at the man the first time you meet him and already be thinking like, is he my husband? Just be looking at a relationship that you can enjoy and let evolve, because sometimes if we like them or we get that little feeling, we're already at the altar. And so then we have these really unrealistic expectations of who and where he is in the process, and then that breaks it all down. If you just kind of date with, like, I dated multiple people and no one got cut off until one person or people shifted and started to be kind of like the front runner, if you will, showing me that they also were interested in marriage and treating me the way that I wanted to be treated. But until then, it was fair game, right? Because everyone doesn't have to be the match for life. They can just be a person that you have in your life, again, as a friend. I met some great people. So I think when we shift that, we can have more healthier dating experiences, if you will. So I really love that both of the ladies took some time. At the same time, I had 2 years, I didn't date. And then I came to Philadelphia and then started putting my foot in the water. But it was a really good 2 years for me to be by myself and just kind of fall back in love with me and who I am. So all those things, I think the healthier you are as an individual, the healthier that your dating experience can be.
Yeah, yeah. Anita, let's talk a little bit. You said
Okay.
you've never been married. Do you want to get married or you just sick of this
Absolutely.
foolishness?
No,
You
no,
want
no,
to
no,
get
no.
married. Okay.
Absolutely. I
Oh,
definitely want to be married.
okay. So what do you think are the impediments to your getting there? Is it because you're finding the same kind of person? If you're finding the same kind of person, the work has to happen with you.
Hmm.
You
So it's
have to
not I'm
say,
finding the same kind of person. I have the major thing for me is the lack of integrity. People are assuming lifestyles and just personalities these days. So my backstory is a little different. I met my daughter's father when I lived in Delaware at a function, and we dated for a little over 2 years before I became pregnant. Totally immersed. I'm originally from New York, so my family was in New York. Introduced him to my family. He was from Philadelphia. I was attending all family functions, you name it. He had a job which allowed him to travel a lot. And my job at the time, I would travel with him here and there, like when he would go on long spurts, maybe to another city or state. And but there was major infidelity going on. I mean, he literally was living double, triple lives. And
did
when
you
I
say
found
double,
out,
triple lies?
oh, absolutely. When I tell you, like this man had families,
Ooh.
families,
I know that story.
families.
Betrayal.
Um,
Did you say
and
families?
no families.
Oh, see, I don't
When
know.
I
See,
was
'cause
pregnant with my daughter,
mm-mm.
I found out about a child that was born when we first started dating. And I said to him, like, so you just this you act like this child didn't even exist. And he said, I didn't know if it was mine because I traveled so much.
That was clue number
And
one.
I was just like, are you kidding me? And then I remember him like separating me from his family. So like I said, I attended
Clue
every
number
sister's
two.
wedding. Yep. I attended every sister's wedding I mean, we were going on, family Fridays was family night. We would go bowling with the sisters, with the brother, everything. Lo and behold, my daughter has a sister who is, they're like a year and some change apart or something like that. When I was 6.5 months pregnant, I received a phone call from another young lady who told me she was also pregnant. And at that moment, I can tell you it was a complete shutdown for me. That I just totally shut down. It was reclaiming me, my life, my health. I have zero tolerance for that. So, immediately, calling my doctor, making sure I'm okay, which I was in the physical, but
Thank God.
mentally, it took me to a whole nother place. I spiraled into a situation of one.
Mm.
Um, and he played on the fact that I was pregnant. I remember him saying to me, I was 32 years old, and him saying to me, you're 32. What are you going to tell your family? What is your family going to think? Because now he knows my family dynamic. He knows I come from I come from a bonus family. So I have my biological mother and father, but I also have two bonus parents who raised me just as well, like if I was their own blood. And so he tried to play on that. And I remember sitting down with my mother and her looking me in my face and said, I don't care what happens, you have us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I,
that changed my trajectory of everything, of being what, a single parent. Like, I grew up with friends who had children who had gotten divorced, they got married like right out of the high school, some when we were in college, started families. And I remember what their lives were like. And so in my head, all of that played out. What does this look like? 32, living in Delaware. I literally sold my house. I moved to Philadelphia into the home my grandparents owned. And they weren't living. My grandfather had passed away. My grandmother was living with my mother. I moved in there. I decided I was going to stay home with my daughter for 2 years because my immediate family was not in Philadelphia. So, I'm like, I don't want her in daycare, things of that nature.
I
It
have
was
a question
survival
for you.
mode.
I have a question for you. Was he playing on the family aspect, saying that you will have nobody?
Yes,
If without him, you would have nobody.
I would have
Do you,
no one. And what did that look like as a 32 successful Black female?
it's interesting you say this because some people don't know this story. It was a national news story, so I can share it. But when I
Mm-hmm,
was dating Mayor Myers of Medford, New Jersey, I
mm-hmm,
remember the day I woke up in the bed and turned on the news, and there was his story, and there
mm-hmm.
was his family, of people I didn't know, right? So I heard he said
wait,
the
you were
wife.
dating oh hell.
Yo,
Okay.
listen,
Mhm.
You were
listen,
dating
listen,
the mayor who ended up on
listen.
national news,
You want to
who
hear it?
was married
Listen.
with his wife.
In Bedford. Listen,
Mhm.
Tiffany Myers, I'll never forget her. I was told that she had died, and these two children were in school, and so they would come home on weekends, and then this and the other. I was living with Christopher on Rittenhouse Square, living together. We were in every magazine, at every photo call, at every opening of an event, at every envelope, right? And it was not until a person by the name of Paul Wharton, another news media person in Washington, D.C., called me to tell me that I had stolen his man. And I said, what are you talking about? I don't know, never heard of you in this, any other, right? And I
Mhm.
said, Christopher, what is this still? Now, Paul Wharton never said Tiffany Myers was not dead. He never said that, right? So I'm thinking, what is happening? Is there another, there's another family, but there's another gay family. I'm thinking, my God, what are we doing? That began the tension. When I woke up in the morning one morning and turned on the news, and Christopher was next to me, and I saw the first, the news cycle's in two. And I watched the first news cycle, and there was Christopher because he had gone to California and been caught up with another person. This is all national news. You can read this, the Google,
Oh.
Google, Google, right? And there he was with another person. He had gotten caught because he was using his credentials as a mayor to say he was going to give all these gifts to this person. And that person, a rent boy, posted all about this in the news in California. Of course, the news came back to New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, and they went to their home where Tiffany Myers answered the door.
The door.
And I'm watching this on the news. This is the first time I'm hearing this, other than this crazy Paul Wharton. So I let Christopher sleep, amen. And I just kept watching the news. And I waited for that whole news cycle. Got up, made myself a little cup of coffee, came back with the coffee, and sat in the bed again. And when the news cycle back, I said, "Baby,
Here we go.
he looks a lot like you." And he got up and cussed and profaned and left and this and the other. And
Mhm.
if it was not for a system called Sonos, do you remember Sonos?
Mm.
Sonos,
Yes.
you could plug your instruments into your house, the entertainment center, and
Mhm.
all your
Yes.
business would upload onto the television. Well, he plugged in his Sonos into the laptop when he got home that day, and all his text messages came up. And I sat resolute looking at the TV on top of the fireplace, and I just began to jot down the numbers and the names.
Mhm.
And I took the next 2 days to call the numbers and the names. So when you say that you live with somebody with many different lives, I get
Mhm.
that. And the first question people have is, how did you know? How could you not know? And the answer is, you don't know. This
You
man had a
don't.
person here, there, the
Okay,
other
Yeah.
place.
okay,
You
No.
okay,
don't.
okay,
You
okay,
honestly
okay.
don't. And
Do
and
you
I say that.
but here's my question. Do
Yeah.
you really not know though?
You
Do you
don't
not
know.
have
You
an
don't know.
inkling?
You don't
So when
know.
I
Is it
tell
No.
that
you
good that
don't
you don't
know,
have an
When
inkling?
no, let
when
me
you
tell
are
you, I
walking
am not
around
a
the
woman.
world,
Yes, I'm not a woman that hides. You are going to take me out on dates. I am posting pictures. I did not hide my life. You can go on my Facebook page and
there it
go back
was.
all those years and you will see
Yeah.
him. We
There
were
he
at
is.
weddings. We were at the beach. I was not a secret.
I
I
had
was
the
no
children on
way a
vacations,
secret.
right? We taking international vacations, this, that, and
Yes.
the other. And we
Post it.
attended,
Yes.
listen,
What
we
kind of
attended the
what?
Yes.
opening of an envelope.
Hmm.
Ikoromo
Yes.
Shandalama Glory. Stop for a second.
Yes.
I'm telling you,
What kind of
Yes.
sick
people.
person?
Yeah.
Because it is a sickness. So let me explain to you. It is a sickness. And I had to, but you know what? It's crazy because I remember saying, I'm equipped for this, right? My mother's a retired psychiatric therapist. I was equipped for this. My mother sat me down and she said, this is not on you. This is on him. So from this point on, what are you going to do?
I
And
wasn't equipped for this.
you
I
know,
I
wasn't,
wasn't.
I wasn't equipped for this.
I wasn't equipped for this.
And
well,
you
And
know,
I will tell you
so
this.
I didn't. So let me say this. I say that, and
Mhm.
don't be dismayed. I did cry. I did.
Oh yeah.
I felt hurt. I said, at I'm 32. I literally had to say, I'm dealing with this at 32. I didn't deal with this at 18, 24. I didn't deal with this at any other
Ever.
time in my life. But this person that I let become a part of my life.
Hmm.
This is what you do, and now I'm carrying your baby.
Well,
Never
and
been pregnant.
the
I'm carrying
reason
your baby.
the reason
Like
why I
that's
say
unusual.
the reason why I say I wasn't equipped for this is really a question for you, and I know how I'm
Mm,
dealing with it. But part of what makes it hard to date, right? The first question you
mm,
asked, Andre, what makes it hard to date, is
yes.
that I am aware that already on the table I come with a scar that
mm,
says, "How many families do you have?"
mm,
Right? Which is an unfair question for anybody at a table. I come with
mm,
a scar that says, "Are you yourself?" Am I going to wake up and be on the news for the wrong reason? Am I
mm.
going to this? Now, I stayed out of that whole story. Y'all never heard me speak about this before. This is the first time I ever talked about this, right? And but I come to the table with a high expectation about morality, value, this and the other,
Yes.
which is so unfair,
Ooh,
so unfair. And I wonder, do
it
you come
is.
to the table? Well, here's why I say that,
Okay.
because I've had people come to the table with expectations and values for me that were not my bridges and journals to jump over, things I'd never dealt with before. And
Mm-hmm.
so I recognize in me that I have to make space for things to not be perfect every time I go out on a date, and I have to stop creating red flags out of every. He used the silverware the wrong way. He drank from the finger bowl. He this and the other. I have to stop. I have to stop. Right. I have to
Mm-hmm.
pause and say, David, how much of this is someone else, and how much of this is your own emotional scar?
But hold on. So hold
Okay.
on. Wait a minute. Because you come with another set of things, David, in terms of there's so many married men that are doing this.
Ooh, that's what I'm telling
So
you.
many.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many people have called me and gone, now I know you did, but he's gay, right? I'm like, well, how the hell did? Because people are
I've
not
met your
allowed to
husband.
be themselves, and
Yeah.
so they get into these marriages and they're in this facade. Sometimes the women know. I've had a conversation with a woman who say she would rather date a gay man than try to be out here in the streets and he could have his own relationship. That was on my Instagram live. I didn't make that ish up, right? Because folks are just so frustrated about what's going on in these dating streets. But you have another thing. How can you tell if you're dating a guy if he is not if he doesn't have a whole family, if you don't first do your own research, which then can become
Thank
burdensome.
you, Jackson.
So well,
Yes.
and
Mm.
today we live in a world which we didn't live in when this was happening, right? That the world has changed in many ways, but today I live in a Google world, and so the first thing that happens in the dating scene that I live in is that I get on Google. So when Meghan
Mm.
Markle said she didn't research a royal family, I was complicated in that because I know what the first thing I'm doing is Google, 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 Chat GPT. Who is this person?
You become
Right
your own
before
private
you're.
investigator,
You
and
That's
then you
do.
right.
get one
You
friend
can.
who does it with you.
Uh huh.
But
That's
if
right.
you
And they
go
send
down
you
the rabbit
information.
hole,
Right,
if you go
Janine?
down the rabbit
Right?
hole, there
My
is no
mother.
coming out of it. There's no coming
my
out of it though.
my mother will send me information about the person she thinks I'm dating, right? And
Mm.
and the thing is, and to your point, Andre, we said I'm not sure that you're single and everyone understands it because when I date one person at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I treat them as though they were, right? So I think in practice too. If I want to be married, I'm going to treat you like a husband. Because I want to know what you're going to be like in this situation. So I don't play with you like some toy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of research now, and I can tell you, so many women say, "Oh my God, I'm not sure," and I'm like, "I've seen your husband. He's at U Bar, this and the other. I understand where he's at. If you want to know, get these following apps. They're gonna kill me, child.
Mm-hmm.
Go get you, ladies, get you a grinder and a scruff, and get you make it
Grinder
look
and
and
scrub.
see,
That's where they're
see,
hiding out.
see where you see. If you're black, get a jacked account. See,
Mm-hmm.
look
Right
and
there.
see who these people are. And just sit quietly and ask yourself. But to your point, Andrea, there's so many women who are willing to date men who they know are not sexually interested in them. And that problem creates an epidemic of health problems.
Well, that's a
for the whole community.
companionship. Those are people who are looking for companionship, and they don't want to be lonely. And I say that because I have single girlfriends,
But at what
and they tell
cost?
me that they
But
they,
at
they
what
don't want.
cost, Oneida? But at what cost?
But and I don't, and I do not agree to it. But my older girlfriends, I will tell you, especially ones who are widows, who are divorced, they turn a blind eye and they say, "Well, you can't get perfect. You can't get perfect." And I will tell you, you have to have your list of what are the non-negotiables. And I'm hard to date, so I am seeing someone who it'll be a year. He is not my boyfriend. I see him exclusively. I date him exclusively, but I put that on the table from the beginning. He came from a different situation, being divorced, father of two children. And so, you just learn how to maneuver differently, but you go in differently. I do go in with, okay, let me do my research. I'm not going all the way down the rabbit hole, but I'm going to sit at the rabbit hole and I'm going, dig a little bit. And as time goes on, but I still don't, in response to what I've been through, like, my reaction, everyone is just bad. I don't have that mindset. At least I'm not there. I've never been in a situation like I did with my daughter's father. That was one, and that is only, and thank God, because she is 16 years old now. And I just can't live that life. But I will find that there are people, I hear stories all the time. I can tell you, in the course of having his child, how many women have reached out to me on Facebook. I'm dating such and such, and I'm like, Miss, pay attention to the signs, and I wish you well. And I have told him, I said, someone is going to kill you. You cannot
Yeah,
play
because
with
you
people's
cannot keep playing
lives
with
like
people's
this.
lives like
You
this.
Emotions.
cannot.
Yeah.
But what I also will tell you is, I have, as far as I know, the last of his children. But the difference between me and the other mothers, and I face it even to today. My daughter has an innocence where she doesn't know that side of her father. She didn't see her father living in our home and then being introduced to another child. It's a blessing, but it's also a curse, because she's had one of her siblings say, actually, the sibling that's right before her say, "Daddy left my mom for your mom."
Mhm.
Ooh.
I can tell you the day it happened. It was the day that I met him to take family pictures with his girls. And that little girl sat next to me and said that. And I just looked at her and he said, "That's not true." Because that's what her mother
Told her.
or someone told her that. And to
Who
this
Okay.
said who
day,
were
that
her?
that, that takes
Okay.
place.
All right. So here's what I'm deciding. We're going to have a series
Mhm.
of conversations over the next few weeks about this,
Mm.
because
Mhm.
while I understood that there were some dating issues out here, I didn't realize it was as prevalent as it
Yes.
is, and it's causing people to A, not trust, and B, to always be all over the place trying to figure out, can I trust you? As Janine says, I'm gonna put you back in the bag, shake it for a
Mhm.
minute, see what falls out as I'm shaking you. Cause what the hell? Y'all make me want to hold on to Mr. Sanders with his little,
And you should.
listen,
And you should. And
listen.
you
Yeah.
should.
When you are in a
And
healthy
you should.
relationship,
You are
do what
blessed.
is
And you
needed
should.
to keep it going.
Mr.
Yep.
Sanders, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Right?
Yep. Let that man leave a
But
sock on the
no, I
floor. Don't worry about that sock. That sock is nothing compared to
Nothing.
everything else. Nothing.
Leave your plate at the counter.
That's right.
I think
But we also
um
have to proceed in this dating world, even though we all have our own traumas.
Mhm.
We cannot date with complete fear,
Right.
because
That's it.
you will not attract the person that
Mhm.
is meant for you if you
Mhm.
are completely living
Lean into
in
that. Lean into that
state
because
of fear.
lean into that, Janine. You will
no,
attract
that's
your
great.
fear.
Yes,
You
Yes.
Yes.
will
attract
Yes,
attract
fear.
your
exactly.
fear.
No,
That,
Woo.
I've
that's
met
what I was.
David,
people
Hold
where's
on,
your
who
third
Janine.
are
P degree?
committed.
Where is your
Hold
degree?
on.
Because
Wait a
I
minute. Hold on.
know this is
Wait.
not just like a
Hold
degree.
on,
That's
honey.
that's
Listen, we're gonna
what
continue this conversation this week. So go. I promise you'll get to finish it. But keep going, Janine, and then Cherie.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had to even change my verbiage and the way that I speak. I am not a hopeless romantic. I am a hopeful romantic. My husband is there. My husband is waiting. So I can't live in this state of being where I'm like, oh, if I date or who I date,
Mhm.
this person is it, or they're not it, or
Yeah.
this is a red flag. I even change red flags and I teach this to my clients. What are the green flags that you're seeing? Because
Mm.
we are so prone to point out everything that is negative that we are not attracting the people that we deserve.
Absolutely. Because so
I
that you
agree.
speak it, so that you behave, that's what you get. Go ahead,
Yes.
Cherie.
No, I was going to actually say that your words become your world. Talk becomes your truth.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
What you speak into the universe is what you get back.
Mm-hmm.
So it is around language. Language is so
Mm-hmm.
important. Your thought process, your mindset. Of course, I've dealt with infidelity, but I couldn't walk into any other relationship assuming that infidelity was going to happen, because what happens then, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It
If I
becomes
say this is going to
sabotage.
happen, it's going to happen. And then I'm going to say, see, I told you it was going to happen.
Right, because you called it
Mhm.
unto yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because you just brought it to yourself. Exactly. So for me, one thing that I did a lot differently in my relationship with Tracy that I had not done in the past, is because sometimes having hard conversations, or what people consider hard or uncomfortable, something that we shy away from. And
Mm-hmm.
as a result, then we don't get the information that we need to. So I started asking, not what you did in the relationship. What would your spouse tell me? What would your ex-spouse tell me? What would ex-girlfriends tell me? If the answer was around, oh, she was crazy, or she did this, and if the answer was less around what they did, I knew that there was something that either they were hiding, or some truth about themselves that they hadn't realized yet.
Mm-hmm.
So Tracy was married 33 years before we got together, and actually he did a lot of those things that all you were talking about: incarceration, infidelity, and addiction. And so when we had those conversations, he was very transparent. I wasn't the greatest husband. I did, there were things that I did.
Mhm.
And so that was encouraging to me, that even though those are things where I probably wouldn't have wanted to, me and his ex-wife have a great relationship. And I'm like, girl, I'm glad you did that part of him, because I couldn't have. But I was appreciative that he wasn't like, yeah, she did this or she made me, those types of things. A lot of men will blame the ex-spouse or the ex-partner for the things that they're doing. So one thing I do appreciate about my husband, he is not perfect, but I appreciate his accountability
Mm-hmm.
in things, because at least if you're accountable, you can kind of see where
Yes.
you can make some shifts,
Right.
or where your part in whatever the fallout from the relationship is. The other piece for me was recognizing what my participation was in the fall of the
Mm-hmm.
relationships, because I
Mhm.
too have to be accountable. We can't ask the other person to be accountable and not have ourselves be accountable. So
Mm-hmm.
even when Tracy and I have challenges, I'm looking at, what did I do, or what can I do better? Obviously we're married, so it's always about how do we
Mm-hmm.
keep the harmony in the marriage. But even in relationships, I'm like, wow, yeah, he did these things, but there was some stuff that I did too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's a piece, for me, I'm always evolving. Even in the marriage, I'm still evolving, because there are things that we have that come up, and we have to address those things. So those negative experiences required me to date very differently, to attract differently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, child.
I have a whole, some of you know, I have a chapel in my house. And so in that, I wrote in a list of qualities that I am and that I want. And I folded that up and I put it into the chapel and I closed the door. And for all of Lent, that was in the chapel and the door. I can't tell you how many of the things in those lists manifest in the world that I sit in my
Yeah.
bathtub and let the water run. And I tell the water what I want. And so there is a tool out there for you all about how do
You see,
we,
you see me turning around and looking. I have a whole
yes,
vision board that I
yes,
put together about
yes.
what I was attracting. I need you all, ladies, the next session, and I need
Hmm.
you all to come back next Thursday. All of you
Okay.
to come back next Thursday so we can continue this dialogue around what should dating look like now, right? What are the expectations? Right now, we're talking about all the traumatic things that we had gone through. I need this conversation to wrap up in how do
Shift.
we What are the expectations now? Because I realized, and Cherie and I had talked about this for a while. I was attracting broken wing birds, men who didn't like their mamas. They were looking for somebody to be their mama, and even as they thought I was going to replace their mamas, they were just as unkind as they could be. And I was like, yeah, no, see, I can bench press you, and what I don't look good in is prison orange. I ain't doing this, not with you, not today, not ever. And so I began looking at myself, and I go, all right, Andrea, whose phone is doing that? Is that my whose thing is doing that? If you decided
That's
to do that.
mine. It's my work phone. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, so okay. Okay. So I started looking at myself and I go, so what is it that I bring to the table? Because we're always looking for somebody to bring all this extra stuff to make our lives better. But what do I bring to the table? And as I'm bringing that stuff to the table, what would make that person be attracted to me? Right. And so God tested me because when my husband came, child, he had on dishpan. His clothes were all gray, army green, and black. That's all he wore. Right. He cut his hair once a month, but I saw that man's heart. And as a direct result of seeing his heart and seeing the things that I needed and what I was expecting out of a relationship, I now have a wonderful marriage. Now, let me say this. Marriage, and somebody said to me, I hate when you say marriage is work. Well, damn it, marriage is work.
It
It's a
is.
whole lot of compromise. It's a whole lot of conversation. My husband can function in disarray, and he tells me that's because I'm a genius. And I said, well, I can't function in it. So we got this whole conversation going on. He'll make a sandwich for me, and the entire kitchen is a wreck from one sandwich. And I had to say, Andrea, shut your mouth. The man is making you a sandwich so that you can eat, right? I have to think through those things. And if he doesn't get something quite right, I go behind him without complaining that it wasn't quite right because I understand that the love and the value that he brings to our relationship now is way bigger than an effing sandwich. Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So there are
Absolutely.
things that we have to do. And I just made the assumption as I was going through this, and I also kept my husband off social media until the day we were married. Now, y'all thought I was in a fictional relationship. I wanted to make this girl out because I was checking. So I say to him now, I said, babe, now everybody knows you're my husband. You cannot even pick your nose. It's going to be a problem because everybody is watching you. He did not
Mhm.
ask for this life. And so I ask you all to be kind to him when you see him out in the streets and he walking looking like he lost somewhere. Just give him a little bit of grace because we have to choose. We cannot choose based on what we think people would want for us. We have to choose by what we know is right for us, whether it fits the narrative or the description of
It's true.
anybody else of what anybody else wants or thinks for us. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
And
Andrea, can I hop in here for a second? Another thing, because I didn't do vision boards, but I journaled. And so I journaled all the time about how not so much physical aspects of the man, but characteristics, the character pieces, and then how he made me feel. Do I feel loved? Do I feel protected? Do I feel, because even when I'm frustrated with Tracy, even when I'm frustrated, I know I'm covered. Like
Mhm.
he
Yes.
will take care of me and I am covered. And so from that perspective, it helped me a lot because a lot of times it was more the less substantive things that we can look at to attract us and make us feel butterflies and all the things, but it's more those characteristics, that integrity piece. Even though he has the background he has so much more integrity than many men that I dated that didn't have, that background. So again, it's like, what are those character pieces? How do you want to feel, and what do you vision for your life? We have very similar values around, family and wealth and building and and the things that were really, really important to me. So again, we're not, I think he looked good to me, but I don't care what he looks to other people because it's how he makes me feel. And the things are root core values that are very aligned. And
Yeah.
to your point, Andrea, and this stuff that he gets mad at me about, he's a Virgo and just super everything has a place. And I'm okay with things looking a little bit more lived in. I mean, obviously, we have somebody that cleans at our house every week, so it's never in that much disarray. But those are things that we have to meet each other. We have to meet each other on.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize, like, is it that important? Is all this over here that we're building, are we going to, throw it down because of, whatever his little issues with me are and whatever my little issues with him are.
And I would say, and to always recognize the contract that you have chosen to walk into,
Mm.
right? To not be blindsided or swept off your feet or pulled up from the rug or whatever else. To say to oneself, I'm sitting down here with a legal contract. That contract is not only in the law, but it's between me and God, between my spouse, between my family, between me and the people that I love. And I'm asking the world to uphold the contract with me. And I think if we're honest about that contract, when we sit down and look for someone, then we find people that we say, it's not the sock, it's not the whatever else. It is the mutual help propriety
Mhm.
that we're looking for someone to balance us, for someone to bring themselves into our life, that
Yeah.
we can show up for them
Yeah.
in the way that we expect them to show up
Show up
for
for us.
us.
David,
Yes.
so I'm going to stop the show here because I have to. I know you all got to work. Lord Jesus, forgive me. But excuse me, we're 15 minutes past. But for all, except you, whatever, Cherie, you're going to have yourself a good old time. For those of you who are panelists, David, Oneida, Judith, and Janine, are you okay with coming back next Thursday to have to continue to have this conversation? Okay.
Sure.
Yes.
So here's what I'd like you to do for me. I need you to write, and here's my counseling piece coming out now. I need you to all write for me. What are your negotiables and non-negotiables, and what does dating should look? What should dating be, in your estimation, all of you? Because we're going to come back and talk about this next week, and I want us to be a little bit more focused on dating. What are your negotiables and non-negotiables? What is it that you believe you are good at? What are your challenges? Because we're not perfect people, right? What do we bring into this relationship that could cause an issue if we didn't address it ourselves? Because I don't want this to be about I'm tearing somebody down to build myself up, which none of you have done. But you have recognized, all of you, that you've gotten into situations that were untenable, and you had to figure out ways to extricate yourselves and still live, and still live. David Child, they're gonna be talking about your people are
Listen.
going, Andrea, fix your face. I couldn't fix my face. It was just too much. It was too much. Happy anniversary, Cherie. Give
Yes,
Tracy
happy
my love.
anniversary.
Enjoy
Happy
yourselves.
anniversary.
Uh,
Thank you.
enjoy the food, enjoy the atmosphere, and I'm hopefully you'll be back next week to join us in this continuing
I'm going to
conversation.
try. It just
Okay.
depends on kind of what we're doing. Yeah, I'll definitely try.
Okay. No worries. No worries. I think we can manage a little bit. All right, darlings. Love to all of you. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us. This episode of Mornings with Mother is officially over. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye, darlings. Bye bye.
Bye.
Whoo, child. This, whoo. Father Abraham.